Oke, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Before, thank you for Ma'am Ani for having our to present to this presentation. And here, our presentation about history and mechanism of global warming. Next. I will introduce our whole presentations. The first, me, Arif Ramansyah, and then Sultan Zeki Maulana Fawaz, Al-Hadid Jovan, dan Reki Yuda.
Global warming. Global warming is the phenomenon of increasing the average temperature of the atmosphere, ocean, and land on Earth as a whole. In another sense, it can also be interpreted as an increase in the Earth temperature as a whole, marked by melting polar ice and temperature in various places around the world expressing a significant increase. This also makes the situation or water on Earth increasing erratic. Quote from the article published by Occasion in September. It was recorded as the hottest temperature on Earth in the last years and was the cause of several large forest fires that occurred, such as the one in California. The fire became the largest fire on record that occurred in California, with a land area of million hectares, according to research from Intergovernmental Panel of Climate Change. The increase in the Earth temperature that has occurred recently has ranged from an iceberg in Antarctica broke apart again and made the largest chunk ever in history with a size of kilometer and a thing of 30 meter of the Earth temperature continues to rise and cause more ice to melt. Then the worst possibility is that a lot of land will be lost due to sinking by rising sea levels, especially Indonesia, which will be greatly affected considering that our country is an archipelago with more than island inside it.
And then history about revolution industry present to Al-Hadid Jovan.
I'm sorry, there is a problem with my connection, so I'm gonna continue this presenting. Okay, I'm gonna tell you about history revolution industry. When view from its history, global warming begins to experience a significant increase after the Industrial Revolution. The Industrial Revolution occurred in England around the end of the 8th 18th century and peaked at the beginning of the 19th century. This revolution had a very big, significant impact on change in human civilization, where at that time there were very significant development in the field of science and technology that made it easier for humans to carry out their activities. Exhaust substance from factories and vehicle cause increased air pollution, which creates the greenhouse effect as a cause of global warming.
Things that cause global warming: industry, transportation, land change, energy supply, housing, office, farm and agriculture, and waste. Percentage of cause of global warming: energy supply 13%, land change 15%, waste 3%, farm and agriculture 7%, transportation 15%, office 7%, housing 11%, and industry 29%.
And I want to present the process of the greenhouse effect. Uh, for greenhouse effect, there's 6 steps. Step 1, solar radiation reach the Earth's atmosphere. Some of this reflection back into space. Uh, for step 2, the rest, the sun energy is absorbed by the land and the ocean heating the Earth. For step 3, heat radiates from Earth's Earth towards space. Step 4, some of this heat uh, is trapped by greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, keeping the Earth warm enough to sustain life. For step 5, human activities such as burning fossil fuels, agriculture, and land clearing are increasing the amount greenhouse gases released into the atmosphere. And the last step, this is trapping extra heat and causing the Earth's temperature to rise. Next. This is a brief story of
starts in 1896 in Sweden with this guy, Svante Arrhenius, a chemist. Arrhenius is the first person to figure out that putting CO2 into the atmosphere could make the Earth warmer. But the prevailing wisdom of the time says that there is an infallible balance of nature which no human actions could ever possibly disturb, so nobody takes Arrhenius very seriously until 1938, when an engineer named Guy Stewart Callender decides to look at global temperatures recorded over the past 50 years or so and figures out, hey, what do you know, the Earth is getting warmer. War breaks out in 1939. Ends in 1945. And as the world's economy recovers, industrial production goes into overdrive. Burning of coal and oil puts so much sulfur pollution into the atmosphere that it partially blocks the sun's rays, and the world actually gets slightly cooler over the next 3 decades. In the 1950s, scientists start looking more closely at the possible effects of CO2 emissions on global temperatures. For the first realized that we could have a major problem on our hands.
A few degrees rise and the Earth's temperature would melt
Threats to think about, like nuclear holocaust.
duck and then cover.
In the 1960s, the cooling trend continues, and there's even some fringe speculation that we could be heading for a new ice stage. 75 research paper. Temperatures keep rising throughout the 80s and 1980 people's attention, and global warming starts to enter mainstream public awareness for the first time.
Human activities are changing the atmosphere.
We face a global environmental crisis.
The global threat of climate.
Margaret Thatcher, one of the first world leaders to speak out about climate change. Anyway, in 1995, an international group of scientists issues the first public statement that there is a discernible human influence on global climate. In 2001, they predict that 21st century warming will leave the 20th century in the dust. Over the next decade, some of the anticipated effects of global warming start happening. Things like rising oceans, intense droughts and heat waves, and powerful storms. The hottest years in history have all occurred since 1998, and 2015 is on track to be the hottest year ever. So what does the future hold? If we curb CO2 emissions, temperatures could rise as little as 2.5 degrees Fahrenheit by 2099. That would be manageable. If we don't, temperatures could rise. Massive food shortages, widespread extinctions, and a redrawing of the world's coastlines. The story of global warming will end with a changed climate. That's inevitable at this point. How much it will change remains to be seen.
Okay. For for our presentation, there's conclusion. Global warming is a phenomenon of increasing the average temperature of the atmosphere, ocean, and land on Earth. As a whole, in another sense, it can also be interpreted as an increase in the Earth temperature. As a whole market, by melting polarized and temperatures in various places around the world. The Industrial Revolution occurred in England around the end of the 18th century and peaked at the beginning of the 19th century. Okay, before, sorry if there are words or delivery that are less pleasing. For the end, thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.